Hello friends. So this is the first time that I am coming up with a video on history related chapters. Uh, a lot of you would have read my posts on the Facebook page, The History Teacher, and today I am starting the History Teacher YouTube channel as well. If you like this channel, please subscribe to it, as I would keep on coming up with fresh topics and ideas. And I would also like you to suggest me topics and ideas which we can talk about on this channel as well as on the Facebook page. So, anyways, so my today's topic is the Battle of Britain. How many of you have read about the Second World War? How many? I'm sure a lot of you would have read about the Second World War in your school textbooks, in your school history textbooks. But today we are going to talk about one important part of the Second World War called the Battle of Britain. As we all know, Hitler launched the Second World War in 1939 in September after he invaded Poland, and within a few months he had not just conquered Poland but also conquered Hungary and many other East European countries like Czechoslovakia and Bulgaria and all. And then, after a few months, his gaze swept westwards, and then he decided to conquer Holland, Denmark, Belgium, the Low Countries, and finally he turned to France. In the 1940s, or rather in the 1930s, France had a very strong army, and very importantly, it also had a very strong defense between France and Belgium called the Maginot Line. So this Maginot Line was a defensive structure actually that was designed to defend France from any invaders, particularly Germany. France hadn't forgotten the lessons in the First World War when Germany had tried to invade France. Not forgetting that lesson, France had then erected the Maginot Line, which was a very strong fortification. Despite this, the German forces, they not just overran the Maginot Line, but they also conquered northern France and in fact a large part of France as well. So France was defeated by Germany in just a matter of few weeks, and France was the strongest power after Germany in continental Europe. Now Hitler thought that after France, it's going to be the turn of Britain, and he was hoping that Britain would sue for peace. वो उम्मीद कर रहा था कि ब्रिटेन जो है शांति के लिए अपील करेगा. After all, now Britain had very few friends. The United States was located thousands of miles westward. There was no independent France, there was no Belgium, there was no Denmark, there were no friendly countries in the continental Europe. So he was right in expecting that Britain would sue for peace. But then Britain had a very strong prime minister in the form of Winston Churchill. Churchill had vowed that he would never surrender ever to Germany. And in his various radio broadcasts, Churchill said that after the Battle of France, it would be the Battle of Britain. And this dismayed many British politicians and statesmen, particularly Lord Halifax, who was the foreign minister of Britain, who wanted to negotiate with Germany. But Churchill ruled him down and said that we will fight, and we will fight till the end, Germany, and we will protect our homeland. Before Germany had invaded France, and much before Germany had even started the Second World War, British statesmen and British military leaders had the foresight to invest in the Royal Air Force. In fact, they had spent more money on their air force rather than their land-based armies. They invested a large amount of money on radars, and these investments later on paid off during the Battle of Britain. So the strategy of Hitler was quite simple. He wanted to defeat the Royal Air Force. He knew that the British Army was very weak. After all, the British Army had lost the wars in Sweden and Norway, and it was really very bad leadership. So he thought that if we defeated the Royal Air Force, then Britain would be automatically defeated. So he first of all launched his air attacks on the British shipping vessels in the English Channel. Do you know where the English Channel is? This channel lies between Britain and Europe, and there's a 36 kilometers narrow channel that divides England and the rest of Europe. So much of English ships, many English ships used to pass through this channel, and Hitler thought that if I started attacking these ships, then the Royal Air Force planes would come and then we would destroy them with our own Luftwaffe. But Churchill was very, very smart. He said that, okay, I won't put my aircraft into danger simply because Hitler's air force is there in the channel. After a few weeks, Hitler then changed his strategy. He decided to attack the British airfields, but even there he could not do so, because as soon as his planes arrived in the British airspace, the British radars used to warn the Royal Air Force about the invaders, and the Royal Air Force planes used to scramble and they used to attack the German bombers and fighters. And in fact, there was Hitler's Luftwaffe suffered quite a lot of damage. So when the attack on British airfields did not result in even a significant success, then Hitler thought that why not then now attack London, the capital of Britain, which he did. And for the next several months, from August till September 1940, there were several bombing runs on London. In fact, when you read various newspapers and magazines of that time, you will be appalled to see that even when Churchill was addressing the British Parliament, Hitler's planes would used to come on in the British airspace and used to pound London. It used to happen. So these bombings had happened. I mean, they happened over several weeks, but ultimately the German planes, the German Air Force was defeated by the Royal Air Force. So this is how the Battle of Britain started and ended. Hitler had hoped that he would be able to destroy the Royal Air Force with his smart aircrafts like the Messerschmitts and others, but Churchill's boys, his pilots, they actually proved him wrong. And you'd be surprised to know that most of the Royal Air Force pilots were between 18 to 25 years of age. They weren't educated much. They came from lower class schools, and unlike the British Army, they did not have a privileged background. Many of them had just dropped out of school. They just passed class 12 and they were in the Air Force. But they did a great work, and Churchill acknowledged these airmen by referring to them as the few, you know. So when you read up Churchill's speeches during the Second World War, particularly in the 1940s, he's always referring to these, the few of the Royal Air Force who defended Britain against Hitler. Now this Battle of Britain actually became the turning point for Second World War, because after he was defeated by Britain in September 1940, Hitler thought that let me now focus my attention to East Europe, and that's how he diverted his energies towards Russia and Eastern Europe and started attacking Russia. And that's how Britain got some breathing space, and that's how America also jumped into the battle, and these two countries, along with the Vichy France, along with the conquered France, along with their allies in France, they attacked the rear of the German army. But then that's a different story altogether. But today, today being the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, I thought I should share this wonderful piece of history with you. If you like this story about Battle of Britain, if you like this channel, please subscribe to this channel, and I promise I shall come up to you with more interesting and enriching historical facts. Till then, bye bye.